Alright guys, TacticalGrub here, and today I wanted to talk about 100 Thieves, and towards the end of the video, more EnVy and Raid Reserve, the teams that didn't do so well at CWL Las Vegas, but haven't had any rumours really surrounding any potential roster changes. So, it's Christmas Eve today, tomorrow is Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. I won't be uploading for a couple more days, and then I'm going away to Poland, so I'll have a few videos over the next couple of weeks, but it won't be as many as I've had over this December so far. But regardless, today 100 Thieves, and the potential for these guys to make a roster change. Do they need one is the real question here, because my overall opinion is I cannot see this team winning a championship with this 5 as the lineup. I think they need a change if they want to take home a chip, as the Americans call it. But with the Pro League qualifier on January the 16th, you don't want to make too drastic a change, I feel, unless it for fear that it completely messes up your team chemistry and completely messes up your team, because you need to place top 12 at that 28 team event to get into the Pro League, and from there, that's really where things kick off. You can start making changes to be the best team in the game, but you don't want to do something too drastic. You have to give 3 out of the 5, so, you know, they could make changes here or there, but it doesn't seem like they will as of now. I've heard a few mumblings they might be thinking about a change. Roster lock is January the 2nd, so there is still time, but let's talk about that today. So like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, and yeah, let's get right into it. So 100 Thieves, they come top 12 at Las Vegas, and I think this was a real shock to a lot of people because they've been doing so well online. It was kind of ironic because I think Kenny did a tweet at Crim6 saying something like, Crim6 was saying how they'd won all the online tournaments, and Kenny was like, oh, you know, it's just online, bro, or something like that. And then, of course, 100 Thieves are the team that's been looking really pretty solid online, and then they go to LAN, they come top 12, so they're pretty ironic. These was their results anyway, so 100 Thieves, ignore the Black Ops 3 ones down, that was a rough time of things. Top 4 in a couple of 2Ks, second in a couple of Pro Downs, top 12 at Las Vegas, and then they jump right back to third. So ignoring Las Vegas, it seems like they're right up there at the top, and it was definitely surprising them having such a poor run of things. And we'll have a look through their run in just a second here. With Reserve and EnVy, of course, also top 12 teams. Somewhat surprising as well, but 100 Thieves probably the most surprising, given that they had the best run of things coming into the tournament online. FaZe Clan, G2 and the Pittsburgh Knights have already made changes from their team, so maybe the changes will seep up a bit from top 16 into that top 12. So let's have a look at 100 Thieves' run through the tournament. So they get into this pool, and yeah, if I can find it here in just a second, this is the one. So they lose to E United, nothing you can really sniff at with that. E United, of course, came second in the entire tournament overall. They beat out Reciprocity, they beat out Mindfreak as expected. The real shocking loss was to this Team Sween lineup. Nolson, Weeman, Quicker, Dylan Cod, and Brain. How they lost to them is absolutely mind-blowing. They got absolutely demolished by the team play of Team Sween. I think it really showed up that what 100 Thieves lack as a squad is that coherent team play and roles that make sense and that they are willing to play. And also the ego, I think, on the squad, because you look at these guys, Kenny, Pharaoh, Slasher, and Octane. From the communication that I've seen, I don't want to show you a specific clip of the kind of arguments they've had lately, because you can always take those out of context, but I will link down below a 30-minute video I saw today on Reddit, which is basically encompassed an entire argument those guys had a couple of days ago, and Enable seems to be like the only calming force on the team. He is the guy performing the weakest in terms of statistics when we go on to that in a couple of seconds, but he is the only guy that seems to have a level head like all of the time, and definitely going into this matchup, I guarantee they thought they were going to absolutely smoke Team Sween, and yeah, they got completely railed the other way around, and I think the next video I do on like a gameplay analysis might well be a match from this series, just to show into context how much Team Sween were outplaying 100 Thieves all around in that matchup. So then they have to drop down to losers bracket, of course. They 3-0 G2, and then they lose 3-1 to Luminosity, who end up coming top 4. So really, the entire tournament, they only had one series that was an unexpected result. That loss to Team Sween, definitely people weren't seeing that one coming. And yeah, if they win that, then who knows what happens towards the rest of the tournament. But definitely, they weren't as good as a lot of people were expecting them to be. The question is, do they need a change here? So let's have a look back at the stats from World War II for a second. Slasher, 1.21. Scroll down a little bit further, we have Kenny at a 1.07 right here. Like, if we look at the S&D stats as well, we have Slasher at a 1.24, Ferro at a 1.18, and then Octane at a 1.16. Like, their S&D looked so good on paper coming into World War II. Let's have a look at the actual stats for this event. 100 Thieves, 1 in 5 in Search and Destroy. Their control, very nice, 5-1. The only one they lost, I believe, was to Team Sween. 5 in 5 in hardpoint, pretty respectable given, they had to play E United, they had to play Luminosity. But damn, that S&D was tragic, and it's really confusing to see exactly why this would be. Maybe 100 Thieves go back and they just say, okay, we lost that match to Team Sween that we shouldn't have done. We just took it too lightly. We were a bit complacent going into the matchup, considering, we'd taken out reciprocity in mind for it. It looked like it was a walk in the park for us, playing a team without, they didn't even have an organisation, right? Their S&D was just shocking overall. They may just go back to the drawing board and say, okay, if we can fix our search, everything else stays the same, we're going to be a very competitive team, do as well as we can online. Maybe this was just an off tournament, we don't necessarily need a roster change. The role situation is always very weird in this squad though, because you have Slasher and Octane that kind of play a very similar role. So if I just talk you through some of the stats from these players. So Slasher had a 1.12 over the entirety of the tournament. He was using that assault rifle, generally an ICR. Then you had Octane at a 1.01. So, not what you're really expecting from him, and Octane definitely doesn't look as competent as he has in previous games, I would suggest. And yeah, the Slasher and Octane combo just doesn't seem to be working as well as, you look at Splice, you have Accuracy and Aqua. Accuracy is like the laid-back kind of slow assault rifle, Aqua is the up-in-your-face one, generally using ICRs, Maddoxes, whatever. The same combination doesn't seem to work on 100 Thieves right now. I'm not exactly sure why that is, because Slasher has always struck me as a pretty aggressive assault rifle. It would make sense that Octane was the one behind him, looking over him, Slasher being a little bit more up in your face. The real interesting thing is that Kenny does not seem too willing to use a Sork. He uses it at times, but definitely he prefers the Maddox over the Sork, and I'm not sure whether that's something of an ego thing. I know a lot of people have been pointing this out that, okay, he won Rookie of the Year at the Esports Awards this year, and he was hailed by everyone as this young superstar. He doesn't want to be that guy who's now considered bait for his team, And Enable, the guy who typically has preferred an assault rifle throughout his career, he's the only, main sub for this team. And Kenny's the guy trying to support him, because maybe Kenny feels like, he can't be the one putting up a 0.9 and baiting for his team. He's superstar Kenny. Maybe that's an aspect that plays into his mind. And then Enable's kind of left out to dry with the other guys playing relatively slow and reserved, and the pacing doesn't really seem to be there. I think a lot of people would say, okay, Kenny, pull out a sword, we don't care what you think, you're the best SMG in the world in World War II, get it in your hands, and then maybe even get rid of a guy like Octane, have Slasher as that main assault rifle, and then pick up in a couple of months someone like Simp, who can be more of an aggressive player. And because, it seems like most of the changes we're seeing are in terms of aggression. Methods going off FaZe Clan in terms of Celium. Seems like the pacing is the issue that a lot of the teams are seeing when they made their team at the start of Black Ops 4. They're thinking, wow, we got all these assault rifles. It's looking like an assault rifle heavy game. But as it turns out, the Maddox is basically an SMG and you can play super aggressive with it. And that tends to be the way that teams are leaning. So going through the stats a little bit further, Ferro at a 1.03, Kenny at a 0.96, and then Enable down at a 0.8. But I don't exactly know what you can say too much about Enable, given, as I said, he does seem to be very left out to dry on this squad. Look, this squad is incredibly talented in terms of the raw players on the team, so it seems strange to rip them up so early after one event, but there are clearly some communication issues on this team and people getting in each other's way. A lot of people have suggested they could look towards getting a coach. And maybe that's one way to go, but you have to consider whether these players are genuinely coachable. Someone like Slasher, someone like Octane, someone like Kenny, Ferro, these players, are they really going to listen to a coach unless they truly trust and respect them? You put someone like TP, you put someone like, even like Karma on their team, they're going to shut up and listen, But what coach could you really get right now that these guys are going to listen to outside of maybe you rip someone like Merc off the analyst desk or something like that? Who exactly are you going to get? And Muddog isn't their coach, by the way. He's like the team manager or whatever. So they don't have a coach right now, just to make that clear if you guys weren't aware. Something that could be looked into, but then again, these guys, are they going to listen to a coach? Is it going to help deal with their communication? Maybe it could, because I've heard people say that TP has done a really good job in calming down the Optic guys' communication, stopping them bitching, and focus on how they can improve rather than just, 100 Thieves communication, a lot of bitching, a lot of saying, oh, this weapon's ridiculous, all that stuff. Maybe a coach could get that communication down within their head, because right now, Slasher and Enable seem to be the leading voices, and Enable can do his best to calm the other guys down as much as he can, but it's tough to stop them losing full. So overall, the team composition, it's super hard to say exactly what they should do going forwards. I wonder what you guys think to do with 100 Thieves, whether they should make a roster change, whether they should wait. They should easily be good enough to qualify through the Pro League qualifier, but who knows, if these issues keep plaguing them, and they tend to lose full, I guess, is the COD lingo in scrims and things like that when things aren't going their way. You could lose a map or two. Exactly what happened against Team Sweden. They lose a couple of maps they weren't expecting to, get blown out in the control. They completely lost the plot, and just, you knew this wasn't their day, I guess, in their mind, and they weren't trying to their full capacity. So something similar could happen at the Pro League qualifier. You never know. They go down early against a team they're not expecting to, and, they just lose full, and their series flies away from them there. So who knows exactly what's going to happen? I don't know whether they're considering a change right now, but I definitely think they should consider a change if they want to be a championship team towards the future. One of those egos on the squad needs to go, and I think right now Octane is not performing exactly how he should. Kenny should definitely pull a Sorg out, because, are you really going to replace Kenny on that squad? You know what I mean? Like, who else are you going to bring in as an SMG instead of Kenny? Ferro is just an all-around talent, and yeah, people have been complaining about his attitude and stuff on Reddit. When I watched the full video today, I didn't feel like there was too much of an issue. He did laugh at one of Slash's comments, and there was a clip that people were saying was taken out of context on Reddit about Ferro's attitude in particular, but I feel like Ferro is definitely a moldable character, and I don't think you would get rid of him. Very talented, of course, with the sniper rifle as well in Search and Destroy. I honestly think if there's anyone you get rid of right now, as I've said a couple of times, it's probably Octane, given the role issues they seem to be having. And yeah, he's not performing up to standard as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm missing something. Let's talk briefly on the other teams here then. So Red Reserve, I'm pretty sure these guys are unlikely to make a change. There was a couple of rumours that Bance was back in the UK, so they couldn't scrim, but I think there was some sort of visa issue, and he's now got that sorted out and is back in the States. Rated did make it clear in Infinite Warfare that when he left Joe, that was like the biggest mistake of his career, because he went on to another team. They had maybe he went on to Elevate or something at the start of Infinite Warfare. Just horrible situation for him. And yeah, he went back to Joe and then had that World War II success. So, if people are calling for a roster change, they would arguably say take Joe out, put in someone like maybe Dylan from Team Sweden or an Alex type player from Lightning Pandas or something like that. But I don't think it's going to happen. I definitely feel like it's something they should consider, but I think the ego and the complacency issue has maybe been similar for Red Reserve as 100 Thieves. I feel like Red Reserve, that they feel like going into events that they're just going to dominate kids, and I just think that's an element of their personality, and I don't really think they have a calming force on that team that can put them in the situation like, okay guys, like let's actually focus up and go for it here. I do think like all of them are kind of, or maybe Joe is a bit of an exception, maybe Rated as well, are kind of characters that like, we're just better than these guys, we're going to win, and I do think that's been to their detriment in this tournament. Reciprocity definitely aren't going to change. They were only in the States for like a week before Las Vegas. Not really much of an excuse, but they've been looking better online than they were before, and also than they were at Vegas. So I expect them to improve. They're definitely not going to make a roster change. EnVy's an interesting one as well. Aches played really well at Vegas, I thought. Hook was good, but not as good as he was online. Assault just did his thing. Apathy and Silly weren't up to standard as far as I was concerned. I had good faith for this team going into the year, but especially Apathy back on a Black Ops game, I thought he'd be straight fire. But he only tends to turn up towards the end of the year at this point anymore. It just seems like towards the end of the game, he's straight fire. But at Las Vegas, he definitely wasn't up to standard. Silly as well, wasn't playing as well as he could have done. So if there's a change you make there, it's probably one of those two. But I do think they'll be tempted to stick it out for now, especially with Beowulf as a coach. When you have a coach, there seems to be more of a push to sticking as a squad. And look, they know they only need to get top 12 at this Pro League qualifier to make it into the all-important Pro League. And if they can do so, then they can make their roster changes from there once they have more LAN practice against the best teams in the game. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like if you did, subscribe if you are new as always. Hopefully the audio quality was a bit better today because I knew that some people were saying it was a problem in the last video and I definitely agreed with them that there was something wrong with it. I changed a few things around and hopefully it should be better today. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching as always and I'll see you next time.